Hi, I'm Schuyler Evans. I'm the board treasurer for Sky High for Kids, a Houston-based charity designed to help end childhood cancer. I recently returned from climbing Mt.Everest, which was a great adventure. Best way I can describe it was it's right on that line between fun and awful, but a great experience nevertheless. Delighted to be successful, delighted to hold the Sky High flag at the summit of Mount Everest, and to help tell you guys a little bit about my climb. Lots of memorable moments during the climb. For me, it was seeing Everest for the first time. We've all seen it in pictures and on TV, but actually seeing it in real life was pretty extraordinary. And then of course, standing at the summit of Everest after all the months of training and the 2 months of climbing, that was also a pretty memorable moment. The physical training is pretty intense. I did about 9 months of training on top of being an athlete and the mountaineering that I've done to date. So I was starting from a pretty good position, but I would not underestimate the amount of physical preparation that this kind of climb takes. The mental preparation is quite an unusual process. It's something that's very hard to prepare for sitting at home here in Houston, Texas, but it's something that cannot be underestimated. You know, it's a very long climb, and having that focus and determination for almost 2 months is a key aspect. Very hard to train for, and it's just something that one has to slightly learn on the mountain. The most physically difficult sections of the climb for me was the first was hitting the physical wall, where you get to a point where you just cannot go any further. And that was around the camp 2 to 3 mark at about 23,000 feet. You know, I did ultimately push through, but it was a very significant event where one had to really dig deep, rely on the training, rely on the preparation, and use that sort of mental fortitude and focus that you'd be preparing for. The second most difficult part was, to be honest, the summit attempt, which is camp 4, which is around 26,000 feet, up to the summit to 29,000 feet. And that, just camp 4 to the summit, back to camp 4, that was a 17-hour round trip. Very, very difficult. There's no preparation in the world that you can do that'll make that particular section easy. And you know, importantly, when you get to the summit, that's actually only halfway. The icefall is correctly one of the most dangerous parts of the climb. It accounts for more fatalities than almost anywhere, excluding the summit section. It's very, very difficult. It changes every day. Overnight, the ice moves, things collapse, crevasses open. So each day is a new experience on the icefall, and you have to go through it multiple times because it's actually the first section of the mountain. The ladder crossings are as scary and as hairy as one can imagine. The ladders themselves are pretty wobbly. They flex when you step under them, and when they're joined together, they twist. So it makes it pretty unstable, and below you are often very, very significant drops. It's pretty cool, but the only way through is through. There are no specific obstacles that I faced necessarily, but each day was a learning curve. You know, using your gear correctly, building the necessary processes and protocols that allow me as an individual, and everybody is different, to get up each day, put on my gear, and start the climb in a way that suits me best. That's something, again, that until you're on the mountain and in the situation, it's quite hard to prepare for. So, you know, the first and the second rotation, you're learning how best to use your equipment, what works for you, you know, each aspect of your gear, your hydration, how you eat, how you sleep, how you use your oxygen. all of these things are slightly different for each individual, and by the time you're making your summit attempt, you should have dialed that in pretty efficiently. This season was a particularly cold season, so a lot of climbers got frostbite, and some pretty badly. I had a little bit of frostbite on my feet, but only mid-level, so I didn't lose any toes, thankfully, or fingers, but there are a lot of climbers this year who weren't quite as fortunate. The other climbers in our team were all pretty similar in terms of their personalities and how they like to approach life. It's quite a unique expedition, so everybody on the mountain is usually fairly aligned in terms of how they approach challenges, and being able to be on the mountain to begin with requires selection, determination, and focus. So the kind of cross section of people is actually relatively narrow. Everybody is an experienced climber with similar goals and aspirations. So on that side, everyone I met within my team and in other teams were all great people, some of whom will be lifelong friends. There's nothing particular that I would have done differently. I was fortunate enough to be successful in the climb, so everything I did ultimately worked. But if I was to sort of pick a few things that I would recommend others to do if they wanted to do something similar, is just to not underestimate the preparation, both physical and mental, and with your equipment. Like, really understand how to use your equipment well. Go on multiple, smaller climbs or smaller expeditions so you can really fine-tune what works for you, as one person's recommendation might not fit into how you like to do things. So it's a very personal sort of process when you get into these extreme environments. Each individual has to figure out what works best for them. So that would probably be my only advice to others. Doing an expedition like Everest is such a unique event. I was very fortunate to be blessed with both the time, the facilities, and the health to do something like this. As I think about my experience, it's quite easy to conclude that youth is fairly fleeting, and health is something that we are very blessed with. There are a lot of people in this world, including some of the children that Sky High aims to assist and help, that will never have an opportunity to go to the Himalayas, let alone attempt to climb to the highest point on Earth. So, how it's impacted my view on life is really, if you can do something, do it. And if you're going to do something, do it well and aim high. If anyone is ever looking to help Sky High for Kids, whether that be through their time, their talent, or their treasure, feel free to reach out to the team. It's a great group of people who are always highly active, looking for volunteers, and there's plenty of things that anyone can do with this organization to help cure childhood cancer, and importantly, be with the children and the families that are suffering from this disease.